was no
Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Former British Labour Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson has been released on police bail following questioning over alleged misconduct in public office. Scotland Yard opened an inquiry into the ex-business secretary after material surfaced indicating he may have passed classified Whitehall intelligence to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump has threatened nations with punishing tariff hikes if they played games after his trade policy setback before the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump has denied reports that the top US military officer has flagged the risks of a major operation against Iran, saying Washington would easily defeat Tehran in any conflict. The US ambassador to France, Charles Kushner, has been barred from meeting French government officials after failing to appear at the foreign ministry, where he was summoned over earlier remarks about the killing of far-right activists in France. French officials said the no-show was a breach of diplomatic expectations. Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion with a show of solidarity from its staunchest allies, and no immediate end in sight to Europe's biggest war since World War II. The United States is holding meetings with Geneva with Russian and Chinese delegations about nuclear weapons after the final treaty restricting Washington and Moscow's nuclear deployment expired. Mexico has deployed 10,000 troops to quell clashes sparked by the killing of the country's most wanted drug lord that claimed dozens of lives. News of his death triggered spasms of violence, with cartel members blocking roads in 20 states and torching vehicles and businesses. South Korea's former President Yoon Suk-yeol has filed an appeal against an insurrection conviction stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. Now, if we start this hour with Europe, the Coalition of the Willing Conference has gathered in Kyiv to mark the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a greater European role in peace negotiations. During the meeting, he has stressed the importance of European leadership in the diplomatic process, outlining plans for a new trilateral format of talks which is expected to begin within the next 10 days. Zelensky has also thanked allies for providing a new air defense package, half of which has already been delivered to Ukraine. Moreover, Zelensky has further urged the European Union to approve further sanctions targeting Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers, while also calling for the swift disbursement of 90 billion euros in previously agreed EU support. From Berlin, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has added that the latest package of EU sanctions aims to cut off Moscow's war funding. Let's now listen into the statements made by the leaders.
We are thankful for the last package of air defense, and I can't share all the details, but half of the package is already here. It came 2 days ago, so thank you so much. This is important. We really count on continuation of this program. We count on the next package of sanctions, especially shadow fleet, Russian shadow fleet, to stop their tankers. And of course, we count on not to have too much challenges with 90 billions. The decision was great, but we need this money here in Ukraine to help our warriors and to help our civilians.
Pressure on Russia. So we will have to work hard on the 20th package of sanctions, follow up the effort as well with the US on what they do and what we are doing. And let me insist once again on the shadow fleet. Kier mentioned the very good figures we have. We had a recent very good operation.
We must be very clear. This war will only end when Putin realizes that he cannot win. That is why we must increase pressure on Russia. We must dry up Moscow's war funding. The 20th package of sanctions by the European Union has precisely this goal.
Now we welcome Mr. Matthew Vadum. He's an American journalist, joins us live from an author, or joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadum, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, the Coalition of the Willing conference is taking place, has taken place today. What have they done so far? Have they only, given just the monetary funds to Ukraine? Other than that, have they done anything meaningful?
Well, that's hard to say. If you consider talking and negotiating to be meaningful, then I would say yes. But it's pretty clear that the Russia-Ukraine war is at a stalemate, and it doesn't look like that it's going to end anytime soon, despite optimistic predictions from some.
Yes, so how do you analyze, what do you think, what would be in their agenda as they, gather together, and the 90 billion euro package, which was agreed before, is now being, Hungary and Slovakia have not agreed on it now. What do you think? What would happen next?
Well, they're thinking about ways to deprive Russia of funding for the war effort in Ukraine. And that is, also something that the United States has been working on, getting India to, for example, to agree to stop buying Russian oil will help dry up funding for the war effort in Ukraine. So that's eliminating funding for Russia's war effort is key. It's easier said than done, because Russia still has willing trade partners in the world. So there's only so much that can be done on that front. I guess enlisting more aid from European countries will also help. A lot of European countries have a lot of EU countries, the EU, have agreed to step up their funding of Ukraine's defensive effort, and this is a good thing, and there probably needs to be more of it if Ukraine is to have any chance of prevailing in this war.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Vadum. Please stay with us as we stay on this now. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Ukrainian intelligence services and Western agencies of being behind most of the recent attacks on Russia. He has said the number of terror attacks against Russia has increased and warned of a possible Ukrainian threat to Russian energy pipelines. Putin has claimed Ukraine is trying to torpedo the peace process and said it's vital to strengthen the defense of energy and other strategic objectives. He has also stated that Ukraine and its allies are so determined to defeat Russia that they are pushing themselves to the edge, something they will regret. Let's in fact listen into what Putin has shared.
Не удалось нанести стратегического поражения России на поле боя. Поэтому противник делает ставку на индивидуальный и массовый террор. Здесь и обстрелы городов, и диверсии на инфраструктуре, и покушения на представителей государственных и военных властей. Очередной пример. Вчера на Савеловском вокзале. Судя по всему, это требует, конечно, дополнительной работы с вашей стороны. Но уже сейчас ясно, что, судя по всему, такая обычная на сегодняшний день вербовка через интернет, скорее всего, всучили человеку взрывное устройство, а потом дистанционно взорвали и его, и предполагаемый объект атаки, в данном случае сотрудников Министерства внутренних дел.
Now we welcome back Mr. Matthew Vadum. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadum, for staying with us. Now, as we were talking, and you rightfully mentioned, European coalition of the willing is trying to eliminate the war effort of Russia, which is the key. But although they have been trying that, and the sanction package now they're trying to put the 20th sanction package. What's the credibility of Putin saying that they are driving themselves to the edge while trying to push Russia away from Ukraine?
Well, that sounds like frustrated war rhetoric on Putin's part. He's lashing out at those on the other side, saying that they're hurting themselves, that their efforts are counterproductive, and it sounds like a move born of frustration. He's just saying the other side is spinning its wheels, and it's not accomplishing anything. And this is, in America we call this trash talking, right? He's putting down the other side, trying to demoralize them, and I don't think that it's been an effective tactic so far, because Ukraine is still in the fight and is still not willing to concede the territory that Russia has conquered, which is a major sticking point in peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Russia captured certain territories in east, 20% of the country, in eastern Ukraine, and wants to keep that land, and Ukraine doesn't want to give it to them. So, this just sounds like an escalation of political rhetoric on Putin's part, and I don't think it's necessarily particularly meaningful.
So how do you analyze the current U.S. and Russia's alignment, and also U.S. and Ukraine's alignment?
Well, President Trump complains a lot about Ukraine and the leadership in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky a lot, and has given lots of, has pushed Ukraine to give up the land that was taken from it by Russia. But the United States government continues to support Ukraine's efforts to resist invasion by Russia, and remains on side in that respect, despite grumbling by President Trump, who supports Ukraine, but is trying to strong-arm Ukraine into giving up into a land for peace deal, so that he can end the war. And presumably get credit as a deal maker, as a peacemaker.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Vadim. Please stay with us as we stay on this. Now, according to a statement from a top aide to President Putin, Russia's position on Ukraine could be radically affected if Kyiv pursues nuclear weapons. The aide has also warned that Russia will inform the United States if nuclear weapons appear in Ukraine. In a directly related development, Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, has stated that Russia would be forced to use tactical nuclear weapons against Ukraine, and potentially Britain and France if nuclear technology is transferred to Kyiv. He has described such a move as a radical shift in the situation and a violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Moreover, Medvedev has said that providing Ukraine with nuclear technology would be the same as supplying nuclear weapons to a country that is engaged in active hostilities. Now we welcome back Mr. Vadim. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadim, for staying with us. Now, where do you think, why is this a warning made by, top aide to President Putin, that Russia's position on Ukraine could change and affect it if Kyiv pursues nuclear weapons?
Well, as with other things that Putin has said recently, it's an escalation of rhetoric aimed at frightening Ukrainians and getting them to agree to stop fighting, agree to a peace deal, whether Russia actually means to use, I guess it would be tactical nuclear weapons against Ukraine is another question. It seems highly doubtful that they would actually do that, but they are willing to rattle their they are willing to do some saber rattling in order to pressure Ukraine into a peace settlement that, for now, it appears Ukraine is not interested in.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Matthew Adam for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now we move on to U.S. military forces have seized the Bertha, an oil tanker accused of violating sanctions linked to Iran. The interception took place in the Indian Ocean, but the tanker had been tracked from the Caribbean. The Bertha, registered under the Cook Islands flag and tied to Shanghai Legendary Ship Management, was flagged for sanctions in 2020. According to the Pentagon, the ship attempted to evade detection, but U.S. forces successfully boarded it without incident. This marks the third such interdiction by U.S. forces in recent months, following earlier seizures of the Aquila II and Marinera tankers. The U.S. says the vessel was operating in defiance of sanctions imposed by President Trump's administration. Now we welcome Mr. Retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joins us live from Jaipur. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, thank you. Now, this year and last year, we have increasingly seen these sanctions on the oil tankers, which are sanctioned, being seized across the world. What's the law and who enforces these laws towards these sanctioned tankers?
Suma, good evening. Thank you for inviting for your channel, for your show. As far as my knowledge goes and my understanding about the international policies, rules and regulations with regard to maritime transportation, sanction is such an activity, it can be done by an international agency or organization. No country independently is authorized or entitled to impose any sanction against any other country. This is part of the rule of law which is supposed to prevail in the world. But be that as it may, it doesn't happen, and the Thucydides doctrine applies. The Thucydides doctrine says the powerful will do what it can and the weak must suffer what it must. This is the Thucydides doctrine. Yes. That means the might is right. So US is at liberty to carry out, impose any kind of sanction against anyone which it deems appropriate, and it doesn't have to justify or give any reasons to anybody. This is a unilateral kind of I would say, hegemony, also I would say a kind of assertion which has been prevailing both in Cold War 1.0. Cold War 1.0 is to be restricted to some kind of level because it is to be opposed by the P5 members. Now Cold War 2.0 is witnessing, particularly Donald Trump 2.0 is witnessing many arbitrary cases of seizing these kind of vessels which have been imposed with sanction. Now who knows, does anybody in the world know that what was the vessel sanctioned for? It is only US authorities, they only know. And now you're coming to the international law. As per the international law, there is one law which is called an UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Sea Lanes of Communication, UNCLOS 1982. Unfortunately, the superpower USA has been claiming all other nations to follow this, but they themselves are not a signatory of 1982 clause, UNCLOS. So these are the contradictions which are prevailing. Under these circumstances, US is at liberty to seize and impose sanctions, justify, build a narrative, and thereafter either its forces seize that vessel or the naval ship or ask some other like-minded country, ally member to carry out the activity. Back to you, Asuma.
Thank you for sharing that. And how might these repeated interdictions, including previous seizures of the Aquila II and Marinera, affect U.S. relationships with countries connected to these vessels, especially China?
Well, today we are in 21st century. In 21st century, the global order, although it is in a geopolitical churn, still the central paradigm of geopolitics has gravitated to geoeconomics. Whether we agree or not, anything and everything that happens, there is a China angle. There is a strategic rivalry which is either manifesting outside or there is an underhand game going on just to show down or push back the Chinese domination, because China, by virtue of its economy having had double-digit income for nearly 30 years or more, it has been able to build its comprehensive national power to formidable level, so much so that its economy, in terms of the purchasing power parity, it left USA behind in 2017-18. Today, the PPP of China, GDP I'm talking of, is around 40 trillion. It has crossed 40 trillion US dollar. US is still hovering around 31 trillion dollars. So it has left USA far behind a couple of years back. And talk about technology, talk about the military prowess, the quality may not have been proven, but going by the quantity and the speed of development of all these products is so fast that even America cannot cope up. So under these circumstances, and no superpower would like to lose its supremacy and authority. This I have told in your channel and also when you have been the anchor. And it is quite relevant and applicable to America. America would like to continue to remain as a superpower. Therefore, their slogan called as Make America Great Again, because there was a downswing as far as their assertion and the authority of superpower is concerned. So therefore, I would say that this thing has been an ongoing thing and it is linked to, in some form or the other, the dominance by China, and therefore all these activities are taking place basically to push back China and tell China, indirectly or directly, we are here, kindly be aware of our presence and don't do anything that comes to your mind, be it CPEC or CMEC, CPEC along the Pakistan and CMEC along the Myanmar. South Asia is going to be dominated in times ahead by the American forces and its dominance. And for that, I would quote a book, Monsoon, Indian Ocean, The Future of American Power by Dr. Robert Kaplan. He has beautifully summed up in that book that the commercial basket of 21st century will gravitate towards the Indian Ocean, meaning the India. Therefore, America will do well if it gravitates its forces and calibrates its response matrix in the world order to continue to remain relevant. Otherwise, it will be pushed down the drain and its relevance, authority and supremacy as a superpower is going to be eroded in times ahead.
With that, I'd like to thank Major General Sidakarji for sharing that insight with us. Thank you very much. Now we move on to US news anchor Savannah Guthrie has announced that her family is offering a $1 million reward for information leading to the safe return of her mother, Nancy Guthrie, who has been missing for 24 days. Fighting back tears, Guthrie expressed her family's hope that a miracle will bring her mother home, despite fears that she may already be gone. Police believe Nancy Guthrie was the victim of a targeted kidnapping and have released images of a man caught on the family's doorbell camera who is now the prime suspect. Authorities have received nearly 40,000 tips, and the family has also donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now we move on to Philippine International Criminal Court prosecutor Edward Jeremy has said that former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte allegedly personally drew up death lists and boasted about murders committed during his war on drugs. Duterte faces 3 ICC counts of crimes against humanity, with prosecutors alleged his involvement in at least 76 murders between 2013 and 2018. Meanwhile, Edward Jeremy has responded. Let's listen into what he has shared.
Just as he did in Davao, as president, Mr. Duterte publicly named persons he alleged were involved in drugs, and many of those would end up as victims in his so-called war on drugs.
I'm the one reading it, and I am the sole person responsible for this all.
And this list was subsequently published by the media, who referred to it as the narco list, or as we see from the article on our screens, simply the Duterte list.
Now we move on to our tech news. Warner Brothers Discovery is currently considering a revised bid from Paramount Skydance as the bidding war for the Hollywood studio intensifies. Paramount's latest offer, which is higher than its previous bid of $30 per share, comes after weeks of discussions with Warner Brothers. This new bid aims to counter Netflix's offer of $27.75 per share for Warner's studio and streaming assets valued at $82.7 billion. Despite Paramount's bid, Warner Brothers is still backing its deal with Netflix, with the board continuing to recommend the merger. If Warner Brothers opts for Paramount's new offer, Netflix will have 4 days to respond, as per the agreement made last December. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.